So, hello and welcome to episode number 5 of Cyber Diaries. We have an exciting episode in front of us, guys, and we have an amazing guest. We have Itamar, who's from Prompt Security. So, first of all, Itamar, just a brief introduction, and I guess I wanted to highlight, I guess, to audience on those of us who haven't heard, what is Prompt Security?
First of all, hello, happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I'm Itamar Golan, the CEO and co-founder of Prompt Security. And Prompt essentially is a singular GenAI security platform which helps enterprises adopt this amazing technology, aka GenAI, but without sacrificing its security posture and data privacy. So to put it simply, we help enterprises adopt GenAI safely and securely.
Yeah, it sort of feels like I think we are coming to a place where we almost in Gen AI sort of arms race. Everyone's rushing to implement AI. But I guess before we delve into the deeper subjects, I just wanted first to obviously, briefly to touch on, obviously I've seen, you historically worked in data science, in data mining, and I guess I just wanted to, I guess, briefly understand what led you to be part of, founding team or founding company that works in AI security. How did that idea come about?
Cool. So I'm playing with AI. Back then, we called it data mining or data science or statistics. Since I remember myself, since high school, so more than 15 years. Um, in the When I was 18, I went to the army, like all of the Israelis. It's mandatory, and I've been playing with data science and cybersecurity. And since then, basically, I'm in the intersection between data and cybersecurity. So the idea of building a security platform for a Gen AI technology is not that new for me. Um, by the way, I did my thesis in LLMs like 10 years ago, way before it was cool. So it's amazing to see them thriving today and disrupting our world. But most of my career, as I said, was in cybersecurity companies. I was in Checkpoint. I built their AI detection engine, and most recently in Orca Security, the cloud security company. I led the data department. So most of my career, I was building data science or machine learning based systems for cybersecurity companies. And now I flipped the coin and I'm doing security for AI. To speak frankly, I wanted to be entrepreneur since I remember myself. I'm an extreme persona. I like the adrenaline, the crazy hours, the aggressiveness of this world. It's fascinating for me. So I always wanted to touch that experience. And what is more suited than your most, let's say, biggest passions, which are security and AI. So already 4 years ago, I wanted to build my AI security company, but the market back then wasn't mature enough. Not enough company already implemented machine learning systems, heavily adopted in production, and on top of it, already aware to the security threats of machine learning in production. So I've decided to wait, carefully on the sidelines. And the moment I've understood that LLMs are becoming a commodity, it was around 18 months ago, something like that. Both me and Lior, my co-founder, we were playing with LLMs in Orca. We were building what would be the first co-pilot component in the security platform. And then we saw two main things. First of all, the potential. We understood that this is damn big. This is not like crypto, Web3. This is not a temporary hype. This is going to change the world. We delivered features we could not even imagine before. But developing it, we saw many backdoors and new attack vectors that we are creating through the development. And from that moment onwards, especially after ChatGPT, the web application is revealed and adopted in a pace we've never seen before. I knew that this is the time. If AI is becoming so adopted and such a commodity for any enterprise, they would need to secure it. And that's what we are doing today.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant point. I think it's AI is becoming such a big commodity and everyone's racing towards it that I think sometimes questions such as security is very important to understand and try and answer. Just before we move into more technical, I guess, questions, I really wanted to pick up on that thing. You know, I kind of interviewed quite a few now founders, and it's really fascinating to see. And if you can briefly describe sort of your journey on a few words, because since Ross's Haliluk's book about, you know, sort of that whole field about how VCs operate, how PEs operate, how to found a cybersecurity companies, there wasn't really much information that someone could gather. What is the path from, say, cybersecurity professional to founder of a company, CEO, to the boardroom? So how did you find that path? You know, you obviously said you had an entrepreneurial sort of passion and goal, but how was your route into obviously into being a founder?
That's a brilliant question. I was asking the same question myself, like in the years before. What should I know? What do I need to learn? What is the path? And I was waiting. I did another degree in the academy, and I did another managerial position in some enterprise. And I've waited, to collect those milestones in the way to become a mature enough to be an entrepreneur. But to speak frankly, nothing prepares you for it. It's a complete different experience than anything I've experienced before. And anyone out there who dreams about it, just do it. It's a huge fear, and you would never be prepared enough. But you just need to, dive into the deep water, and through motion, you learn how to swim. And remind yourself that also Bill Gates and Sam Altman and Steve Jobs weren't CEOs and co-founders before their first position as CEO and co-founders. So I think this is kind of the jobs that the best school for it is work in progress, like on-job training would be a better phrase.
Yeah, I
Just
think
doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Actually, I was reading a book yesterday, and it perfectly summarized. It was talking about wartime and peacetime CEOs, and it said most of the books prepare you to be a peacetime CEO, but
That's
sometimes,
the Horowitz book, the hard thing about the hard things.
yeah, exactly. And it was
Yeah.
talking about, you know, how all of the books talk about being a peacetime CEO, but sometimes you have to roll up your sleeves when competition is out there, when you're launching someone and you need to gain the market share. There's nothing to prepare you. You just have to go to battle, and you have to be a different person. So I think it's a brilliant point. So going back to prompt, so I guess, you know, if we start picking some of the ideas on what you guys working, so what would you say some of the groundbreaking, you know, solutions that your company is currently developing to address, you know, challenges with AI security and shadow AI discovery? Because I think these are the two main sort of challenges that you guys trying to address.
Yeah. So maybe a few words about prompt before to understand the product offering. Our platform essentially offers two main things today. The first one is governance around usage. We let you know which application, which GenAI applications your employees are using, and then we can enforce on top of those interactions your policy in the spirit of if someone is sharing sensitive data, we will detect it and prevent it in real time. That's the usage part. The other side is companies that are building application, exposing tech interfaces, those co-pilots we see in every UI these days. And then they are exposed to new attacks, which we already created in the OWASP top 10 initiative. By the way, really recommended to everyone to read it. Then they are exposed to prompt injection and jailbreaks and toxic responses and things like that. So that's the build side. We have the usage side. We are covering them both. I think that the biggest leap in the usage side is the pace. In the past, technologies were evolving in a very linear pace, but right now we are trying to get, for example, this Shadow AI discovery, which lets you know about all the AI tools that your employees are using. And every single day, we are detecting like 20, 30, 40 new tools that we haven't seen the day before. So from day one, I believe, both me and Lior decided that maybe in contradiction or not like other companies out there, we are building a dynamic mechanism. We won't maintain that list as a white list, as a static list, because this is like mushrooms after the rain. We've built in our agent, which is deployed on the endpoints, a dynamic mechanism that intersects the user behavior with the web page of the website or the application, with the traffic that we see in the network. And then in a very high probability, we see a correlation between all of those and a potential GenAI app in a way that we don't need to maintain that list on ourselves. And we take the fruits right now. It seemed like a good solution or decision back then. So that's like one side. The other side, in the build part, the main threat as I see it today is prompt injection. I think we would witness in the next years some very nasty attacks using prompt injection on an enterprise GenAI application that would lead to SQL injection or remote code execution or privilege escalation. And in order to catch them in line, you need to have a technology which is very accurate, very contextual, must be AI-based because you are analyzing natural language, which is super fluid and contextual, and on the same breath, to be in a very minimal latency. And business-wise, you also need to run it in a minimal cost per inference. I call it the magic triangle. I need to do it in the minimal cost, latency, and in the highest accuracy that I can. So in order to do so, we are building our own proprietary and optimized LLMs that are fine-tuned to catch prompt injection and jailbreaks. And that's a very complex technology to satisfy all of those three KPIs.
Yeah. So from what I'm hearing, so assume, because obviously that's where I think now the market is sort of separating, is that there are organizations who develop use cases and use ChatGPT, which is okay if you don't have any proprietary PAI or any type of sensitive data. And then there's organizations obviously splitting that and building their own proprietary own LLM sort of applications, their own ChatGPT deployments, whether it's built on OpenAI or wherever, but which is built essentially in private. But obviously, I assume some organizations are lacking the skills. So obviously, that's where prompt plugs in and essentially allows you to, if you build an application on AI, it allows you to put prompt in there to secure and potentially prevent, as you say, jailbreaks, injection attacks, and things like that.
Yeah, right. 100%. I think that any company, no matter how mature it is in technology adoption, needs it, because you cannot block ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a concept. It's like Jeep in the automobile world. Today, there are more than 10,000 different GenAI applications built on top of those LLMs, and you cannot replace any one of those with some internal built application. Every app outside would be based on LLM and GenAI, and you would need to acknowledge it and accept it, but with the right guardrails in place.
Yeah, and I think I just wanted to touch, so obviously, I think we've previously had the similar conversations. Obviously, there are organizations who, they might write, say, for example, in the policy saying, oh, developers are not allowed to upload the code in ChatGPT. But that's just written on a paper. How do you enforce it is another question. So I guess if you just can expand a bit about, for listeners who might not be familiar about what is shadow AI discovery and how you guys can help with discovering the shadow AI as well as in prevention, because you touched on policy.
Yeah. I give you a very cool example. A few weeks ago, I'm getting a call from a CISO, which is one of my buyers, customers, and he's yelling at me, Itamar, you found some application called DeepSeek. It's not a GenAI. I wanted you to monitor ChatGPT and Gemini. Like I was telling him, let me check it. And then we saw that our dynamic mechanism has detected deepseek.com. You're all welcome to browse there. Has detected it as a GenAI tool, and apparently it's a very similar tool to ChatGPT developed by the Chinese government. And one of his employees in an American company has used it with internal data. That's a fact. And that's a very clear and precise example for Shadow AI, because that's a new tool from China. None of the Palo Altos, Zscalers, Netscope of the world using their static mechanism could detect it in a matter of a few days. It's like a 0-day application.
Yeah.
So in that interval that could reach, I wouldn't say which incumbent, but some of them, it took them more than 2 months to get that into their list. So in that interval of 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, you are exposed to a lot of Gen AI applications you are not aware of, and your data is getting there, and their incentive is to train the LLM at the back end on your data, not because it's yours, because data is the engine, is the fuel for LLMs to get better. And that's why I'm trying to clarify that point, that data leak prevention in the era of Gen AI is much more important, because the probability of your data being leaked to somewhere suspicious is much higher with a Gen AI tool than JSON viewer or Gmail, because of the training phase.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I think it's a very important point, and I think the only way we can do it is through education, and obviously, and hoping you should say OWASP top 10, all of these initiatives in that AI arms race sort of makes people understand how potentially, what risks they're opening themselves up to. Obviously we touched a bit about cybersecurity, but how do you think, that, the use of that AI is essentially evolving its capabilities in the threat landscape within cybersecurity? Because obviously there's always been a discussion around, is it going to come to a point where it's going to be adversarial AI versus defensive AI?
yeah. Wow, that's a big question. I think that all of the sites are going to utilize it. There are already some tools and groups out there that are using AI for better phishing attacks, and a lot of attacks that are utilizing AI to just getting better and more sophisticated. I believe that phishing is the greatest example. You can create amazing campaigns like within a few minutes using AI today. And there are some other tools like Warm GPT, and I wouldn't mention most of them, that are already doing so. But as I see it, also the defense would have it as a better technology. Any security tool we had in the past, from CSPM to firewall to posture management to detection and response, will utilize SOC systems, XDR, will use will use AI, to build better security workflows. I think that the pace of responding into an incident, the pace of finding the relevant information to what you needed would be much faster. So it's a cat and mouse game, as like any other technology in the past.
Yeah, I think as you say, it's important to obviously differentiate and where that race is going. Because I think, for example, if you look at even something simple as SOC operations, obviously having level one potentially, analysts, maybe not necessarily, because you can do that with AI. But ultimately, obviously, there'll still need to be some human intervention at some point. So obviously, it's just, I guess, balancing act of getting as much as possible information for human to make a decision as fast as possible. So I think there's a great integrations there. Obviously,
Mhm.
you guys, because obviously you are helping a lot of organizations who are onboarding AI, and we normally talk about security, but there's obviously other questions that are at play. And because obviously you guys work at the forefront with those organizations who are, I guess, at the cutting edge of technology, what ethical considerations should companies be mindful as they start integrating AI?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. First of all, they should know about it. Where people or applications have integrated AI. Just a mapping, I really believe, I know it's a cliche in the security world, but you need that visibility. Second, that's also pretty obvious. We already mentioned the potential threat of sensitive data leaks specifically to AI. You need to ensure much harder than in the past that your data is not reaching third-party AIs. So that's second. And I think, as we already mentioned as well, that if you are putting some chat interface that is accepting natural language from anyone in Chinese, in English, in Hebrew, in French, and the LLM is receiving it at the backend, or the AI is receiving it, and upon those this untrusted, unstructured input decides to do some action, and companies are doing so. It's important to emphasize a lot of companies, including Fortune 1000 today, are receiving natural language from outside world into the LLMs, and then utilizing it to act with even right permissions on APIs, code execution, databases. So that's a complete a new attack vector. But that's also something pretty obvious that we've mentioned before, the prompt injection part. Maybe the other more, let's say, refreshing ideas to protect from are the fact that there are new threats that are not like completely under the CISO. I don't know if you've seen the Chevrolet example. Have you seen it? The car dealership with some Chevrolet car dealerships in the States, I don't remember which one, try to replace their human-based manual customer support chat with an LLM, which was very cool and worked fantastically. But then those Twitter bots found it and tried to play with it and to trick it. And eventually one of the users made the chat promise him a Chevy for $1. And then the storm started. Tons of people tried to make it laugh and to swear the end user and to promise things not according to the legal bindings. And it was a complete farce with a lot of embarrassment to the brand. So here GenAI or AI is creating a new threat, brand reputational damage, legal implications, product damage, a lot of things that are not like purely security attack, but overall creating a lot of noise that is not like very positive to the company. And I'm talking with those leaders all the time, and the CISOs are telling me, listen, until recently, all the threats on the organizational infrastructure were under my responsibility. But brand reputational thing like that Chevrolet example, this is under the marketing. Or those Chevy for $1, this is under the legal department. So as I see it, AI, maybe the biggest threat of AI is making the borderlines between the departments and the responsibility owners much more gray. And that's a very difficult organization to adapt quickly. And as you said, they need to adapt quickly while everybody, the market, the board, the customers wants them to use AI already yesterday. So that combination is very, very tricky.
You said it well, but I think it's normally it's the pressure of the market, because obviously being first to the market gives you competitive advantage. But at the same time, and I wanted to pick on on your thoughts as well. So we touched a bit about, obviously potential risks as a brand reputation, yes. But secondly, as well, I guess at the end of the day, AI or these language models, most of them are still configured or built by human. And then there's the potential, obviously, that humans will introduce its own bias into it. So how do you
Mhm.
view, is that going to change? Because obviously, one thing in such a scenarios is introduce some kind of regulation or standards. So would you welcome a regulation to level the playing field, or we need to think about something else?
That's a good question. There is a huge argument these days between the regulation party and the other party. Mark Andreessen, for example, is in the extreme side of letting it be. No regulation, no enforcement of nothing. I'm mostly on that side as well. I think that the best example for the risks of trying to regulate AI internally could be reflected in OpenAI. Until recently, OpenAI was joking about white men, but not black men.
No.
Was joking about women, but not men's. While trying to be very equal and progressive, is eventually becoming much more biased. So, and on the other side of the spectrum, if you give it just the data from the outer world, of course, it will adopt and inherent all of the bias we can find in the world.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, we cannot try to make the AI much better than the world is being trained on. It's only a reflection of the world we are living in, which is not perfect. We are all trying to make it better. But for a small group of people to let them the power to define what is good and what is not, and then based on their decision and policy to build a giant creature of AI that will impact the entire humanity, this is even more risky, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I think that the question is then, obviously, if you employ regulation, who has the power? Obviously, there's a power of a selected few. But I think it's always that it's interesting conversation, because in that conversation, like similar to security, if there's no regulation, that there is loads of organizations who like, we don't need it. There is no obviously enforcement, or there is no punishment, we'll be fine. So it's interesting. I guess I wanted to pick up also, because obviously I assume most of the AI adoption is, as you say, we're talking probably cutting edge technology. So probably financial services, some organizations that are very close to the new technology. But how do you feel like AI potentially has a way of helping organizations to bridge the gap, or potentially, how do you see changes happening, for example, in, healthcare, manufacturing? Because healthcare, for example, obviously now I think the way people are talking, compute is becoming a commodity, but compute, as in AI and its capabilities, have potentially to solve things like, cancer, and there's a lot of things that can evolve very fastly. So how do you see that changing in different industries?
Yeah, I think that health is a great example. All of us, I believe, expecting the let's say health department of our country to save life, to
Yeah.
make our life better, to live longer, to be healthier. We are less obsessed, at least in my opinion, about keeping the jobs of any particular doctor. And if any of you or us would now go to an hospital with a very, let's say, risky disease, we would like the best doctor to treat us. And we don't care about its origins and if it's running on water and food or bits and bytes in the computer. And combining it all together, I recently saw many, let's say, evidences that in the area of radiology, for example, AI is better in taking some CT or MRI It doesn't need to be, fulfilled with food, to be after a good night of sleep all the time. It's stable, very objective, taking the most recommended decisions statistically. And me as a patient, that's what I was expecting from my doctor to give me. But as a human, I know that he wouldn't be that stable, that objective, that precise all the time. But AI can be. So as I see it, a lot of the repetitive, very based on tiny details processes could be revolutionized to use AI instead. And it doesn't mean that all of the health industry employees would find themselves without a job. I think that in any other industry as well, the job will be changed. We wouldn't do the same thing as we've done in the last 20 years. We will do something else, but the AI will be an enhancer for us, an accelerator for us, a way for us to do less mistakes. And by the way, maybe to do things that are much more interesting and unique without the repetitiveness of the processes that will be automated using AI.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant point, as you say. We shouldn't think or shouldn't be afraid as AI as being something that's going to replace humans. It's going to be an assistant that potentially, as you say, instead of say saving 10 lives a day, you might be able to save 20, because with the efficiency of AI, you potentially have an ability to see many more people. And that kind of brilliantly sums up, if anybody who's read Cialdini's book about influence, there's a great point there about doctors, how based on the rank, if you wear a white robe and you say to someone that you are a doctor, even if you make a wrong assumption or wrong prediction or wrong, drug to prescribe to and say to nurse to do it, just because of your rank, people will not challenge you. So I think sometimes, having that AI potentially being as a checklist, as a something that can check and verify these things is an important thing to find where mistakes are currently happening and where we can help. Going back to, I guess, in another bit avenue. So we're talking about this mass AI adoption.
I just wanted, by the way, to accomplish the previous topic. Just an example, a very interesting example. In one of our customers, they adopted GitHub Copilot, the code assistant, massively. And we help them to make sure it is safe and nothing secret is being sent outside the organization through GitHub Copilot, etc. That's less the point. But they distributed and onboarded GitHub Copilot on hundreds of users. And after a few months, they checked the added value. And they've seen more than 20%, let's say, added value in terms of velocity of another code using AI solely. And if we were thinking about it before, you can now think, okay, so they can fire like 20% of the developers. But that's not the case. No one was getting fired. The company created and generated value much more with the same brain power. And that's the best way to look at it, in my opinion. We're not going to replace people. We, as humanity, are going to generate much more value to the prosperity of all of us.
Yeah, I think that's a very brilliant point, Itamar. I think sometimes, as you say, people are afraid because they might be replaced, but it's not about being afraid. It's as you say, generating 20% extra value, potentially 20% more code, which can lead to new products, new revenue streams, and new benefits for the company, which could potentially even increase your value and your monetary rewards because you are creating more with better tools. So I think that's an important point. But as you say, switching now a bit of a subject, AI, mass adoption, everyone's looking, all of organizations looking to adopt AI. If I am a cybersecurity professional and I want to be helpful to organizations and learn about AI security or potentially develop AI security skills that could help my organization, what should I do? Not talking about potentially, I don't think I've heard of much.
Come to work at Prompt Security.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's definitely one of the ones. Yes. But obviously, aside from working for prompt security, how can professionals help their organizations secure their AI deployments? Obviously, with the help of prompt or potentially security professionals, how can they look at developing skills in that area?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and most importantly, I think that this is a complete new paradigm. If you were a very security architect before the AI era, it doesn't mean you would be a good one in that new architecture.
Yeah.
So if I would need to concentrate my recommendation into a very coherent one, I would say that you need to understand it. Any security engineer that would like to stay relevant, I recommend you to go to the internet, to play with OpenAI API, to take some open source LLM like Llama 7B, to fine tune it. There are plenty of notebooks out there that will show you how to do so. To orchestrate some application using LangChain or Llama Index, to understand the new architecture, the new ecosystem, to build a basic GenAI application, and then to pen test it. You would see how easy it is. And afterwards, when you get some understanding, try to improve your architecture and privileges and all the guardrails that you were using or not in order to make your following penetration testing much harder. And I think that in that iteration-based process, you would understand AI much better, and on the way, understand how to protect it and to secure it in a much better way.
Yeah, I think it's an important point because sometimes we want something easy, as in, oh, let me do the course and I'll be a master. But I think
a certification.
Yeah, that's the thing, exactly. Yeah, I'll be certificate master and I'll know everything. But I think the problem is sometimes theory does not meet the reality. And the more you can play with and touch things, the more you will learn. And practicality of it is obviously is going to be a big thing. So, and then going back, I guess, into next. So how do you, if you had to describe, how do you think AI has transformed cybersecurity practices in recent years? And how do you think it's going to evolve over the next 2 to 5 years?
Tough question. Forecasting, or for the fools, as we say in Hebrew, it's hard to forecast specifically in AI, which makes the pace like 10 times faster. I would say that in the next 1 to 2 years, I mostly see a lot of processes in the current security tools around, alert remediation and processing in SOC systems, and all the SOC team work on top of different security tools. I see those processes getting much more efficient. The LLMs would ingest the different data sources from your CrowdStrike and SentinelOne and Wiz and prompt security, and will prioritize it and connect it and suggest you like a coherent story of an incident. So you would be much more productive and efficient. That's in the next 2 years. Looking forward, I think that most of it will be completely automated. I think that the paradigm of solving an alert, remediating an alert, something that is very common today in security teams inside corporates, would be vanished. We would know how to automatically mitigate those stuff. And our way to work would be completely different, but I cannot even imagine it. So I don't know what would be the alternative.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to, I guess, to touch that point. I see a lot of cybersecurity tools or cybersecurity companies sort of evolving into data lake sort of analytics. And do you feel that obviously organizations that amass customers and amass amount of data, similar to what compute is becoming as a commodity, those organizations that amass a large amount of data, so obviously therefore they will have larger language models. Therefore, I think something like, as we know from before, ChatGPT was free, so obviously it could train the model. So do we think that cybersecurity companies that will amass more data and do more analysis will have a competitive advantage in their tooling because of AI?
Actually, I'm on the complete other side, other party. I think that LLMs are that good, like the model is that good, which makes the data that until recently, in the last 10, 20 years, data was the king. If
Yeah.
you add the data, this is the new coin.
Yeah.
This was the power. As I see it now, the added value of getting more data and owning more data is relatively less important than in the past, because if you have X amount of data with LLMs, you can reach almost the same results of a company with 10x amount of data with the same LLM. So for me, it's even an opportunity for more equilibrium in the market. And I see it in prompt security. We raised a few millions in the seed round, but we only raised 2 millions in the seed round, and Tropic just raised like 2.5 billion from AWS. We are only 20 people, but the things and the technology and the achievements that we are achieving using this technology are immense. So in my opinion, it's even an opportunity for less powerful organizations to create much more than at the past, and data is, in my opinion, less relevant as it used to be.
Okay, I think it's a great point, because if you say the potential is, then we might see a bit of a leveling of a playing field, and the models are becoming such powerful that we might don't need the masses of data to get to where we need to go. And I guess, to sum it all up, I just wanted, I guess, we talked about a few interesting things, but I wanted to, I guess, let people know and showcase. So obviously, we talked about shadow AI, we talked about AI security. So if organizations or people want to learn more about PROM, or organizations want to potentially start discussions about PROM because they are on a road to building their own AI capability, how can they, get in touch? How they can find out more? Do you have any specific case studies that people could, find?
Yeah, of course. I think the easiest way would be to browse to prompt.security. We are a type of a company. We put all our truth outside. Our story and product and architecture is very clear on the website. I hated those security companies when you get to their website and you're like, what they are doing? It's all like a cliches and buzzwords. So I think that our story is very precise and straightforward. You can read about it in a website, including blogs about customer use cases, etc. But I think the best way is to schedule a demo and to see the actual product. But I would say that I think in a little bit different from previous eras of technologies, with AI, you better prepare in advance. Not like build your GenAI application. And we have exactly that customer use case. One of our customers was rushed to release his Copilot to external customers. They built something in 3 months. They released this GenAI application with all the PR and chat interface. Everybody was very happy, but then problem arose. People tried to hijack it, prompt inject it, jailbreak, embarrassing print screens on Twitter and LinkedIn, a few prompt injection that were leading to actual infrastructure attacks on databases and code execution, brand reputational damage, etc. And only afterwards, and a bit too late, they were searching for a third-party vendor or something like that that would protect them. So with the pace of AI, I would recommend to get the security mindset in the right timeline, probably or preferably in the design phase, in the development phase, and not like retrospectively, which is a little bit too little, too late.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, it's a brilliant advice, Itamar. And yeah, anyone who's wants to get involved in AI security or shadow AI discovery, I guess, go and check out prompt security. But thank you very much, Itamar, for appearing and sharing your ideas. It's a wonderful conversation. So thank you very much.
I enjoyed it very much. Have a good one.
Thank you.